Good morning, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your Hurricane and Hurricane HD video blog for Tuesday, July 17th, 2012. What can I say? The tropics remain very quiet in the Atlantic Basin. You can see this Saharan dust, these waves of Saharan air that come off of Africa through that African easterly jet stream at the mid-levels at about 5,000 feet in the atmosphere or so, just blasting this dry, stable, dusty air into the Atlantic Basin. And as you have heard me mention many times, it is perfectly normal and expected, especially during this part of the hurricane season when pressures are as high as they are over the eastern Atlantic Basin and over North Africa, helping to drive that strong flow of air off of Africa. One thing it also does, when you have that much dust out there, there's just enough of it to block out a tiny amount of the sun's incoming solar radiation, and you start to cool the sea surface temperatures out here. And what that might do, before you say, hey, that's a good thing, cooler sea surface temperatures means less hurricanes, where there will probably still be the same amount of tropical waves, about 100 come off in an average year. And so instead of them developing out here, maybe they will develop farther west, and then they would be too close, and they might track towards this area before turning out to sea. Just something to keep in mind, that sometimes what appears to be a good thing can actually turn out to be something that we don't want to see. In the last couple of years, with the exception of Irene, which was able to come in and just skirt the east coast, most of the hurricanes have been able to form early, turn out to sea. Igor passing right over Bermuda in 2011, or I'm sorry, 2010, I guess it was, and really that's been the norm because of the early development in the eastern Atlantic. So I will be watching to see, as I'm sure you will too, how far west do these tropical waves get before they develop. Do they continue to just cruise on into the eastern Pacific, or will they develop at about this area and then impact the islands into Florida, perhaps the East Coast, and or into the Gulf of Mexico? We'll just have to wait and see. Just something to keep in mind. Speaking of tropical waves, this is a shot of Africa, and you can see some limited convection here over East to Central Africa. Here is a tropical wave trying to set up, but it's got a lot of Saharan air around it, and it's just not going to have much of a chance to develop. Not a lot of deep, what's called precipitable water, just too much dry air around, and you can see that on the Saharan air layer analysis from the University of Wisconsin. Just massive amounts of dry, stable air. Then you do have that tropical wave trying to roll off, but it's going to really have to do a lot of battle with that dry, stable air, and it will lose. It's just not time yet. We have about another month to go for things to calm down and pressures to relax a little bit in the eastern Atlantic, which they should do by the time we get to mid-August. In the eastern Pacific, Tropical Storm Fabio, again, it's just very simple. These storms are moving into colder water. Daniel, then here's the leftovers of Amelia. Just very stable, dry air out here as well. When you get into that colder water regime, the more unstable air sitting right there, very obvious because of the deep tropical convection that you see. Fabio here going to move up a little bit more to the north. Some of this remnant leftover moisture may make its way into the southwest United States, enhancing the probabilities of precip, but that's about it. There's the track. It'll be post-tropical and gone in terms of an entity worth tracking in the next few days. But some of that leftover moisture might try to whisk its way up into the southwest United States and provide an increase in rain chances. That is it. The tropics nice and calm for now with no areas of concern. We'll talk about it again tomorrow, maybe come up with something new to show you. I always try to keep it interesting and especially informative. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, and I will be back tomorrow.